between Cowley and Lovell, and worked there for quite a while, and finally they started to downsize, and I was laid off, and so my brother Mel, he was working down the armory, and he said they wanted a caretaker down there to take care of the armory and a motor sergeant. So I thought, well, that's a job, and I signed up for that. About, I don't know how long, it was a pretty short time. I was on my way to Korea. So I don't know if I'd have gone or not, if I'd have been smarter, or I was too dumb, I guess, to know what I was doing. But I was late getting in there, and I didn't know a lot about a lot of the people, but there was a guy from headquarters, Major Simmons, who had a lot to do. He was, I think, second in command in the headquarters over in Sheridan, and I visited with him a time or two, and he told me what a great bunch the service battery was. That's what it was. I was in the service battery of the 300, and he said in all his life he'd never seen a bunch of men that was as upright, and he just couldn't say enough about them. And I found that out to be true. And I didn't know too much about the ones on the firing batteries, and so I didn't really know what to expect. But I thought, as far as service battery, well, I thought it was just about a perfect place to be the motor sergeant. But I found out that in the Army sometimes things can change a little bit, and they when we were kind of short-handed and we were given some reserves, there was a couple of guys from Brooklyn. One of them was put in on as truck driver that I was associated with, and when it come for him to drive truck, he said he couldn't drive, and I thought, well, he doesn't want to drive. If he can drive, he's going to drive. And I told him, you're put down on his papers was a truck driver. And I says, you're put down on there and you're going to drive a truck. I thought he was just trying to buffalo me. I made him, we were living in a schoolhouse on a kind of a rise and with a fence around it. And I put him in the truck, and he rolled down through the gate and was gone about 15 or 20 minutes, or I guess it was a little longer than that, and here they come towing the truck back, and he'd run into one of these amphibious things that they call the duck. Hit it head on, and he had his name was Joe, and there's two of them that were buddies, and this other guy, I can't think what his name was, he come up and says, "What did you hit, Joe?" And he said, "I hit a duck." He says, "Oh, come on, what did you hit?" He finally discovered that the duck was a big landing craft that we could float across the water and then roll up onto the ground and go down the road. And it just flattened that track from the bumper up to the back of over the cab right in. They were sloped like that on the front, and just put that into the front of that truck. So I don't know what happened for sure about him then, but I think he was released as a truck driver. Went to Fort Lewis. There was a few of us had to go ahead. Fort Lewis had been shut down and abandoned, and when we went there, well, we were the only ones there, and there's some of us had to go ahead of time and check out stuff for the kitchens and the clothes and everything that we need, and barracks for everybody. And when we had a motor pool, and we had a lot of old trucks that was over from World War II that had been sitting around, and they needed a lot of attention right away before we got there. And so we were going to stay there for a while and get them in shape, and that was all right, except it was raining all the time. It was in the rainy season, and we were just out there on a piece of dirt with all our trucks trying to work on them. And I'd kind of been around the old fort, and there was several. They had some regular motor pools there that nobody's using. They're just buildings and shops and garages, and I thought, man, why didn't they put us over here instead of over there, just with a piece of muddy dirt to work in? And I finally decided one of those buildings that they'd been built to take these 2.5-ton trucks. And I thought, well, if I ask anybody about it, I know they won't do anything. It's kind of the way things go. And so a few of us got together and we moved one of those over into our place when everybody was asleep. And I thought if we did it that way, why, they might give us an argument, and I didn't know what else they could do other than that. And when the battery commander come out there in the morning, I thought he was going to have a heart attack. See that big building there that wasn't there, and he thought he was gone the wrong direction when he got out of the barracks. But it wasn't long till my friend Major Simmons come along, and he told Major Simmons about that, and he told him, he says, man, he said, I wish there's a few more people around here that had sense enough to do something like that. And they made the others go get one of those buildings and get into it. So everything wasn't all that bad. But I didn't know, like I say, I didn't know enough about the 300, the firing batteries. I had to find that out, and going through my stuff, I found this. Of course, I had this picture, and this picture tells about it was about the first time we got into combat when this picture was taken, and we were given the citation for during this war, and I just thought maybe I'd read it. It's actually written there below that picture. It says, among the hundreds of Army National Guard units ordered into active federal service as a result of the Korean War was the 300th Armored Field Artillery Battalion, the Wyoming National Guard. The battalion arrived in Korea in February 1951 and entered combat early in May. On the night of May 15th, 3 corps of Chinese People's volunteers launched a night offensive against the 2nd Infantry. The 300 AFA attached to the 2nd Division during the Battle of the Soyang delivered devastating artillery fire for 7 days, inflicting thousands of enemy casualties. During the morning of May 18th, the battalion was given the mission of destroying an enemy roadblock. The batteries of the 300th poured both direct and indirect fire on the roadblock, allowing forces to fall back to more secure positions. The heroic and determined stand of the 2nd Division and its attached units allowed the 8th Army to regroup and stop the enemy envelopment for its gallantry in action. The battalion was awarded the Presidential Unit Citation, the first of 4 awards the 300th would earn. 1st and 3rd Battalions, well, this is just talking about what is there now, but that tells about what kind of firing batteries we had in service battery. They were some of the best. And of course, we fought all the way across Korea, up and down it, I guess. But when we come in, why the war, the Chinese had chased. They'd gone clear up pretty near to China, and then the Chinese had entered the war and chased them clear back pretty near off the end of the country, and then. There was a what do you call it? They cut the Chinese off behind. They went put an army unit that went across behind them and cut them off from their supplies. And before we were out of there, why we saw those Chinese leaving the place. We had our artillery up on the hill and was watching them, and there was a line of them about as far as you could see both ways. They had a road just filled with them, and they were without arms, most of them. They were just going back, and probably about half starved. They'd been cut off, and they were headed back to China. And I thought, well, why aren't we shooting at them? We were sitting there on the hill, and we began to inquire around why we was letting them just get away. We'd been used to fighting them so long, we wanted to kill them. And then they said they were going to call in an airstrike on them and wipe them out, and we sat around there for quite a long while. Nothing happened, and all at once the thought came over me that it was something that shouldn't be done. I thought they were helpless, and I grew up enough at that time to all at once see that they couldn't capture them and feed them. There was too many of them, and they had them headed for home, and the best thing for them to do is just let them go home. And so that was kind of a change in my life to get where I didn't think everybody had to be killed. But we fought, like I say, we fought continually. Most of those citations we had sound about like this one, but just different places and different things. But we fought, and most of the time we were pushing them back. There's a couple other little things that were kind of humorous, I guess. When I first got there, I was interested. I was unfamiliar with the war and what was going on, and I got a hold of one of the sergeants that had been there since the war started, and I asked him what we should do to prepare and get ready. And he told me to get a lot of front springs for those trucks that hauled the ammunition and stuff. We were responsible for hauling all the supplies, the ammunition and food and everything that was hauled while we were responsible in service battery. And we this guy told me, he says, if you don't get some springs, why your springs will break, and then you'll order them, and it'll take them forever to come, and your truck will be sitting there. And I said, and before you get any, there'll be several trucks that won't have them. And I thought, well, it's the same kind of thing. If you can't get anything, why, we're going to have to do something to get them. And there's a big wrecking yard of trucks that have been wrecked and blown up and smashed, and there's a lot of those trucks that had good front springs on, and so we kind of got a crew and wound up there was a big lot, and they couldn't anybody see any place. They wouldn't let anybody take them off because they said they couldn't load the trucks. They were taking them to Japan to rebuild them, and said the front wheels would drop off. And I don't know why they couldn't pick them up and put them back on, but they just wouldn't let anybody have them. That's what this guy told me. And so we got on the far side, and there's just a barbed wire fence around it, and we started taking those springs off and putting them in the back of a truck we had sitting there. And I told him, I said, as soon as you get one, I put it in the truck so we can drive off with it if somebody comes along. And we did get caught. Some old a regular Army master sergeant caught us, and really, we just had one spring, and he thought that was all we'd had. We had about 20 in the truck. And he scolded us and cussed us, and finally left, and we took the springs and got out of there. And it kind of did save us a lot of trouble. We never did have any problem that the other people had. It was with those springs. And while I was in there, I had a maintenance truck that was kind of my vehicle, but it had to be parked all the time. It had over air compressor and everything, and I decided I needed some wheels. And I see one of these weapons carriers that had the radiator and the front fenders smashed all up on them, and right beside it was an ambulance. It was the same chassis that had the back end smashed, and it was really quite simple. Those fenders and that radiator on the radiator, what it was bolted to, and the fenders were all in one piece, and you just had to take one bolt out in the front and 2 or 3 back on each fender, and you could just lift it up and set it over on the other truck. So we got my brother was there, and I got him to give me a trip ticket so I could get into the thing legally, and he went with me and helped me, and we switched that over and made a good truck out of it. It was good, and we had to bring some stencils and put some numbers on it and some bucking horses that we had on them and everything, and then we had another trip ticket to get out with it. And I had a Korean working for me that was a carpenter, and I had him make a kind of a camper on the back of it, and I was pretty comfortable, except that we had to light with candles. All the light we had was candles, and we were getting ready to go up to the front, and I thought these people around there where they were safe and not doing anything all had a light plant, and there's an outfit that was right just above us on top of the hill, an ACAC outfit that didn't have anything to do really. The Chinese and North Koreans weren't flying any airplanes down that far. And so the night before we left to go up to the front, I got another guy with me, and we walked up to where this light plant was. They had the tent up on the hill, and there was a wire that ran down to the light plant. They'd had it away from there so it wouldn't be noisy, and you could hear them. They were in there playing cards. It was about 11 o'clock at night. And we just cut that wire and shut the thing down, and when we did, everything was just quiet. There wasn't a sound of anything. And we picked it up and took off down the hill. There's timber all the way down, and we took it, and I took it to our tent and put it under the bed. We had these folding cots, and kind of put some stuff in front of it, and one of the lieutenants come in and said somebody took a light plant up there from that ACAC outfit, and said, man, are they ever hunting for them? There's going to be trouble for somebody. The next morning we loaded up and headed out for the front, and so I had a pretty comfortable camper and a light plant with it. But things weren't always great. We had a lot of close calls. I mean, we all came back from service battery, didn't we, Ken?
All of us made it.
It wasn't a death, and it wasn't because it wasn't dangerous. I don't think there's anybody that didn't have several close calls. We were in a bloody fight, and we tore up the country, and that was kind of on my mind all the time. They didn't have much. They just had cows, and rice, and they had all these rice paddies that were so nicely made, and that's what they lived on, was rice. And through the war, why those rice paddies got all torn up and blown up, and you couldn't tell the North Koreans from the South Koreans, so we had to just about wait till one of them shot at us to know whether we should shoot back. And it was a hard time over there. We shot. We just have to destroy all the places where they could hide, all the houses and buildings. And when we left, you wouldn't believe some towns wouldn't have anything but a few pipes sticking up and a little bunch of piled. A lot of them are made out of. Most of them, the houses are made out of mud with grass roofs. And I really felt bad. I thought, boy, they'll wish they hadn't seen us. We went up and kind of up and back and up and all around, and just there was places that hadn't been bothered, but not very many. There were few, and the ones that were really bad. And I felt bad when we left to think what we'd done. I thought, man, it'd been better if they'd just been left alone and let the North Koreans have them. And I kind of felt that way when I come home, and after a while I began to hear. I had a nephew that went on a mission in Korea, and he began to tell us how it had built it all back, and it was a modern city. I mean, they'd built it back, and it's high-rise buildings and everything you'd have anywhere in these big cities. In this book they gave us, the Koreans were very appreciative of what we did. They sent us each a book. That we got the book just not too long ago. And they sent these books to the armory there and had them distributed them. I wanted all the veterans to get one. And it's a book that kind of tells about the cities and the towns and everything. And there's a picture in here that shows a night picture taken by satellite that shows North Korea at night, and you can't hardly see a light. It's just a little blinker here and there, and South Korea just ablaze with lights, and all islands around there were all lit up, and North Korea was dark. And all at once it came to me that it was what should have been done, what should have done, and actually a lot of them. There was a lot of Salt Lake guys that came in with artillery battalions that was with us, around with us, and a lot of them did a lot of missionary work there. And when the war was over, a lot of them went back, and they've got a lot of church members, and besides Mormons, a lot of Christian people. And Mormons and everything, and they even have a Mormon temple. So I decided that what we did was well worth it, and I've been glad ever since that I was a part of it. And this book that we just got, it says, "Korea Reborn, a Grateful Nation, honors war veterans for 60 years of growth." And like they said, whenever you see a Korean, if you tell them he was over there, why, they start thanking you and want you to come over and live with them and see what their country looks like, and all kinds of things. He was mentioned, the guy that went to Cody when the memorial was put in there, and he went around and thanked everybody and was trying to eat with everybody and thanking them, and so it's a lot different thing than the way things go now. And I think that it was a great thing we did, and a good time that we did it, and I feel a lot better about it. I guess that's all I got to say.